Jesus, you alone. We sing to you, Jesus. Worthy, I lift my voice and sing worthy. I bow my life to exalt thee. Jesus, you alone. Jesus, you
Greetings, church. We are so happy that you gathered here with us today. Psalm 33 says, "Sing to him a new song. Play skillfully on the strings with loud shouts. For the word of the Lord is upright, and all his work is done in faithfulness. He loves righteousness and justice. The earth is filled with the steadfast love of the Lord." Our hearts can celebrate that, understanding that about our God. And so this morning we're going to start off by singing a song of praise to him, thanking him for the grace that he lavishes out on us. So let me invite you to stand. Let's join voices together and sing.
so God, you wrestle with the sinner's heart. You lead us by still waters and to mercy, and nothing can keep us apart. So remember
Yes, God, your grace is enough. Be praised in this place, we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. You may have a seat.
Well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Dave. I'm one of the pastors here, and just want to say welcome, whether you're here in the worship center with us or joining us online or in the family room right across the wall there. We're so glad that each and every one of you is here to be a part of our worship service, and we deeply hope that wherever you are, you connect with Jesus this morning in a meaningful way through our worship and the teaching of His Word as we're gathered together. For all of us, the digital bulletin is going to be a key place of both information and communication between us. If you're new with us, maybe you're tuning in for the first time or joining us in one of our rooms for the first time, we'd love to know that you're here so that we can welcome you properly. We can share information about our church with you and answer questions you may have. And in the digital bulletin is a link that says, "I'm new here." And you can share just a little bit of contact information, and we'll be sure to follow up and to welcome you. If it's the first time you fill that out, then we'll also donate to a charity of your choosing when you do so. So glad that you are here. There's also, for all of us, a link in the digital bulletin for sharing needs that you may have, prayer requests that you may have, just things that you're glad about. And you say, I just want someone to be glad with me. We'd love to respond. We want to be a part of whatever it is that you would like to share with us, pray for you, and provide resources as best as we can so you can fill out that information if it's relevant for you. On August 7th, so this coming Friday, we have an event here, a movie night, a drive-in movie night. And we've got, I think it's a 38-foot screen that's going to come, and they'll broadcast the audio over an FM channel for us. And it's a free event on that Friday night. You simply have to register and reserve a parking spot through our website. All the information is there in the digital bulletin and links and such. But we're going to be showing an animated version of Pilgrim's Progress. It's animated, but that does not mean it's only for kids, right? It is a classic story, classic literature, allegory of the Christian faith, and I think a lot of folks will enjoy it. So we hope that you can join us. It's free. Reserve a parking spot. Bring some popcorn for you and me, and we'll have a great time there at the drive-in movie this Friday. Well, we also have, I mentioned earlier, the family room. And for those that may not be aware of it, right across this wall in room 110 is our family room. It's set up with 10 tables for families to sit at. And the thought is that maybe for some folks, obviously if you're here in the room, this is not you, but for some folks, maybe you're watching online, and you want to come in person, but bringing kids here into the worship center is a little bit of an obstacle. You're like, they're going to be loud. They're going to make noise. I don't want to be a distraction. We've got the family room, and this is the place where they can be loud. They can make noises. They're going to have snacks and activities and things like that. And so it's a great opportunity for families to engage. You don't have to take your kids in there, but it's an option for you, and all the information and reservation is there on the website as well. And we look forward to families using that as it is relevant for them. We're continuing in Hebrews today. Pastor Daryl's got a great message for us. So as we head towards that, let's continue in our worship together, and let's stand and sing to our God.
Strange and lovely sound, I hear it in the thunder and the rain. It's ringing in the skies like cannons in the night. The music of the universe plays. We're singing, you are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me. Forever my heart will sing of how great you are. galaxies, reaching far beyond the Milky Way. Let's join in with the sound. Come on, let's sing it out as the music of the universe plays. We're singing, you are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me. Forever my heart will sing of you. All glory, honor, power is yours. Amen. All glory, honor, power is yours. Amen. All glory, honor, power is yours forever. You are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me. Forever my heart will sing of you. You are holy, great and mighty. The moon and the stars declare who you are. I'm so unworthy, but still you love me. Forever my heart will sing of how great you are. Faithful are you and gracious to us, that you would save us, a guilty race, a name so holy, so sweet and mighty. How could you place it on our heads? You are faithful, you are gracious, you alone are Faithful are you and gracious to us, that you would save us, a guilty race, a name so holy, so sweet and mighty. How could you place it on our heads? You are faithful, you are gracious.
God, you are faithful, you are gracious, you alone are God. Lord, I pray right now you would just gather our focus and attention. May we just listen to your word. May we hear your word. May it just be deeply embedded in our hearts. Be praised, we ask in Jesus' name. God's people said, amen. You may have a seat.
So good morning. Whether you are seated here or if you're watching online, it's great to be together to study God's Word today. So go ahead and turn on your Bible to Hebrews chapter 6, and we're going to get there in just a moment. You might recall that 8 weeks ago, we started this journey together studying through the book of Hebrews. And we said, hey, listen, just be prepared, be aware. This is going to be like 30-something weeks. We don't know for sure how long, but there's going to be 3 different series for the study of this book. Today, we're wrapping up the very first series, and next Sunday, we'll start the second series. But we've learned from the get-go that we're not exactly sure who wrote the book. People disagree and are not quite certain, and we're not even exactly sure who it's written to. But as we learned in the first week, there's a lot we can know about this incredible book in the Bible, especially even the people. So you think about who it was written to, you think about the audience, a couple of things stand out. The first thing that we can see as we study the book together is that it assumes the people who are the recipients of this letter believe in God, that they have a faith in Jesus. The warnings to stay connected, to not drift, to stay obedient over and over and over again gives the clear indication that the people who received this letter were followers of Jesus. And again, the warnings, the instructions, the encouragement that are in this book for those recipients, it's also appropriate for us today as disciples of Jesus. And so as we read this book, we can have that kind of lens and that kind of understanding. It's also a great showcase of the incredible person of Jesus for the person who is yet to trust and follow him. A second thing we know about the recipients of this letter is they have a Jewish background. The writer is always drawing from the Old Testament writings. And he draws from the Old Testament. There's this understanding that they understand the Jewish culture, the Jewish backgrounds, the rituals, and everything associated with the Jewish faith. And so as you and I read this book together, we have to make certain that we are looking through the lens of the Jewish faith when we take a look at these Old Testament references. It's so very important for us. Now, today, as we wrap up this first series, we have spent the last 8 weeks looking at the fact that Jesus is greater than all of these certain historical figures. We've seen that Jesus is greater than Abraham, greater than Moses, greater than Melchizedek, greater than the angels. Next week, as we shift into the second series on this book, we're going to see that Jesus is greater than the Old Covenant. So there's a shift from just the people to the covenant, and that will start next week. Now, let me ask this of you. How many of you have ever put together a wish list? Anybody? Jaden, I'm sure you have, right? Put together a wish list. Yeah, you know, you got this idea, hey, it's going to be my birthday, and here are some things that I would like for my birthday. Or maybe for you, anybody ever been on a house hunting trip? Right? You know, okay, I'm looking for a house. Maybe it's a rental, maybe it's to purchase, and here's the list of the essentials, and here are things that I hope are there. Right? Here are some things that would be on my wish list. Maybe it's the same kind of deal for Christmas. It's like, hey, you know, it's Christmas, and you got this idea of what you would like. There's some people on our staff who are old enough to know about this thing called the Sears Wish Book. I have no idea what they're talking about, but there's this idea that there used to be this place called Sears that had a wish book where you can get some stuff. And some of you young people are going like, Sears, isn't that the place at the mall? It's got like a fence around it. It doesn't exist any longer. And you'll go home and Google to find out what the wish book's all about. There are some people who have a wish list of just how they wish life would be different, how things could change like immediately in our culture, in their world. Now, whatever your wish list revolves around, it is quite natural to start hoping that it comes to pass. That thing that you desire will end up under the tree or in your hands, or it will happen. Now, when you think about this idea of hoping, well, you hope you get that smartphone, or you hope the house has all the amenities that you dreamed about. You hope COVID ends soon, right? I mean, you hope we get back to normal really soon, right? We have these hopes. With those hopes, we carry a lot of optimism. Man, I just hope it comes to pass. I hope it comes true. Now, get that idea of hope, wish list. For many people, it takes a jump into their faith life. And they begin to have these hopes and these dreams and these desires. And they say, well, I just hope they become a reality. What we're going to see today is that is not biblical hope. Biblical hope is nothing like a wish list. It's nothing like just great optimism based on the odds you think it's going to come to pass. Today, we're going to get a deeper, richer understanding of biblical hope. And I want us to see that Jesus gives us hope as an anchor for our soul so that we might live without fear, anxiety, worry, despair, or discouragement. I think many of those words are a part of the human condition these days. The era and the time in which we live, I think we desperately need this message of hope. Now, last Sunday, Dave led us through a very challenging and somber passage of Scripture. He was up here, and you might remember the plexiglass and the little grease board, the idea that when a person comes to faith in Jesus, they enter into this season of immaturity. They have a lot of growth to do. They don't know a lot about the faith of Jesus. They have also trusted in Him and have an elementary understanding, but not a deep and rich understanding that only comes over time after pursuing God. And as we looked at that passage, it's like, hey, if you just stay complacent and stuck in this season of immaturity, there is a great risk involved. The great risk is that you could fall away from faith in Jesus. You could fall away from walking with Him. And if you're like me, you're sitting there and you're looking and you're reading and you understand the context, and there's just this big gulp you take. And there's sort of like a yikes, that's harsh, that's tough. As we think about our own life looking at that passage. Well, this week, the writer makes a shift. The strong warning last week ended with just a couple of verses of encouragement. Well, today there's full-blown hope and encouragement following this very strict warning. And that's where we're going to dive in today. That's sort of the background. So follow along with me starting in verse 13 of chapter 6. When God made His promise to Abraham, since there was no one greater for him to swear by, He swore by Himself, saying, I will surely bless you and give you many descendants. And so after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. Men swear by someone greater than themselves, and the oath confirms what is said and puts an end to all argument. Because God wanted to make the unchanging nature of His purpose very clear to the heirs of what was promised, He confirmed it with an oath. Now, let's make certain that we understand the background of this passage here in Hebrews chapter 6. Without a proper understanding of the background, what we're going to study today is just going to fall flat. And so if you're new to studying the Bible, if you're new to faith, you should have a couple of questions. Like, who is Abraham? And what was the promise? Right? I mean, as you're just reading it, you're going like, well, who is Abraham? What's this promise? And so understand Abraham is a figure from the Old Testament. That is the older part of the Bible. And so if you start to read and study the Bible, there's two major portions. There's an Old Testament and a New Testament. The Old Testament are the first 39 books. And so Abraham, all the way through the rest of the Old Testament to Jesus, like 1,500 years. I mean, there is a long period of time, all right? Before Jesus was ever on the scene, Abraham's being talked about. He's being discussed. Now, when you think about this guy, Abraham, he plays a significant role in our faith journey because God knew He was going to need someone to redeem people with. He had to have someone to pay the price that they were due for their sin condition. And so He comes to Abraham and He says, from this lineage, from this group of people, there's going to come one who will be just that. And so God had this special relationship with Abraham. He was a man of faith. And so God comes to Abraham and he tells him, he says, listen, Abraham, you're going to be the father of a great people. You and your descendants must obey me, though. And as you obey me, I will guide you, I will protect you, and I will give you the land of Israel. So he's pursuing Abraham in this kind of covenant relationship with him. So God promises a super old Abraham and a super old Sarah, his wife, and I'm not calling her old, okay? It's just a matter of the fact, okay? And he says, listen, from you, something special is going to happen. From you, there's going to be a people, many nations. Now, I'm not certain how much each of you know about biology, how much you know about physiology, but when you're 99 years old, your hopes of having children plummets. Okay? It goes south, like way south. And that's what happens in this story. Back in Genesis chapter 15, verse 16, Abraham, though, trusted, he believed what God said, and God credited it to him as righteousness. So he said, okay, well, who's Abraham? And what's the promise? We've looked at that. Well, now you're going, well, okay, here's another word I'm not quite certain about. What is righteousness? Righteousness is when things between you and God are good. It's when this relationship is in good standing, good stature. You're in community. You're at peace. He views you actually as being perfect. Now understand, we are not perfect. You're not, in case you were curious. I'm definitely not. We're not perfect, but yet, because of what Jesus did on the cross, we appear as perfect before a holy God. When we place our faith and trust in Him, it is just like with Abraham, it is credited to us as righteousness. We appear perfect before a holy God. It's only because of the grace of Jesus. Now again, we all sin, we are all hypocrites. We all come up short. But because of Jesus, we appear as righteous before a holy God. Now, you go back to the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, the Jews thought you had to do something. It was based upon your efforts. So they had animal sacrifices. They had all of these rituals that they felt brought them into God's favor, into God's presence, that made them right with God. Yet in the verse that I just referenced in Genesis 15, God credited to Abraham as righteousness based on Abraham's faith and faith alone. It was Abraham's faith in God. Not because he did certain things, not because he did not do certain things, not because he followed certain laws, not because he did certain ceremonial cleansings and sacrifices. He was righteous because he believed in God. And all the way back in Genesis, there is a beautiful picture pointing to us one day of what would be a reality. That God would send one, the person of Jesus, to come to us as a Savior. So He makes this promise possible to us. And this promise is of one that would come one day that would eradicate the sin condition, and that all of His followers, His children, would appear as righteous before a holy God. So God said, Abraham, listen, you're going to be the father of many nations, and we're going to have this oath, we're going to have this treaty, we're going to have this covenant together. Now, I said there's a lot of background we have to understand, bringing the Old Testament into the New to understand this passage today. You with me? I mean, I'm trying to make certain that we're together. We've talked about Abraham. We've talked about this promise. We've talked about righteousness. And now I just mentioned another word, this idea of a covenant, an oath. In the Old Testament, when there was a treaty or an oath made, it was done so through what was called a cut covenant. C-U-T, a cut covenant. And here is how a cut covenant worked. They would kill animals, cut them in half, make a river of blood, and both parties would walk through the blood to seal the covenant. You're going like, that's crazy. Is that like a cult? No. That is before Jesus, what was required to seal a covenant or a treaty. If you go back and you read Genesis 15, you will see this exact covenant on display with Abraham. God comes to Abraham and he says, listen, I want you to take these specific animals. I want you to cut them in half. I want you to lay them on two sides, and it's going to create a river of blood. And then we are going to walk through this covenant. We're going to walk through this treaty together. And as you read through chapter 15 of the book of Genesis, that is exactly what happens. That is the exact kind of covenant that Abraham and God are entering. But there's a very ironic twist in that story in Genesis 15. When it is Abraham's turn to walk through the blood, to go through the treaty, to enter into the covenant, God causes him to fall into a deep sleep. I get chills thinking about that. And this is what God is telling Abraham. He's going to Abraham, listen, you can't hold this up. You will stumble, you will fail, you will disappoint me, you will be unfaithful. This covenant, Abraham, that we are making today, this treaty, this oath, Abraham, is not based on your faithfulness. It's based on mine and mine alone. I am the one who is truly faithful. You're going to blow it, Abraham. You're going to mess up. You're going to sin. But I will still be your God. And if you will cry out to me, then I will hear you and I will rescue you. But Abraham, you must understand, this covenant, it's not based on what you do. It's not based on how good you are. It's not based on anything but me and my faithfulness. See, my friends, that's what it means to be in a covenant. We have marriage covenants, right? People get married, they enter into a marriage covenant. A marriage covenant says, listen, someday, sweetheart, you're going to disappoint me. You're going to make me angry. Things aren't going to be great. But in those moments, I'm going to lean in and I'm going to love. Because we're in a covenant together. We're going to walk through it together and remain together. So God institutes this covenant with Abraham. And he says, every promise I make with you, Abraham, is not dependent on your faithfulness. But as long as you call me God, and as long as you follow me, and as long as you're obedient, as long as you remain with me, I will hold it up. It's based on my faithfulness and not yours. See, God knew that just like Abraham, me and you, we're great covenant breakers. Right? It happens in life. It's not what we want to be called, but our sin nature, our human condition, we stumble, we fall, we sin. Now, this is the promise the writer is referring to in our text today. And however many minutes it took us to get up to it, for those of you who know the story, it's a great reminder. For those of you who you don't, it gives you an understanding of how and why these verses are so significant and so important. So we've talked about who Abraham is. We talked about a promise. We talked about righteousness. We talked about a cut covenant. And now we continue with verse 18. God did this so that by two unchangeable things in which it is impossible for God to lie, we who have fled to take hold of the hope offered to us may be greatly encouraged. So you hear the reference to these people who grew up in a Jewish tradition. They grew up following God with all the Jewish rituals and customs and sacrifices. Now they have taken hold of the hope offered to them through the person of Jesus. Jesus made a one and all-time sacrifice for them. The covenants, the rituals, the cutting and the bleeding and the sacrifices, not necessary. Jesus did it once and for all. It's done. And that is the reason we have this hope. And we see in this passage, God cannot lie. He talks about two unchangeable things. You might just want to circle or note back up in verse 17. That's referring to God's promise and God's oath. Those are the two unchangeable things, His promise and His oath. Now verse 19. We have this hope as an anchor for the soul, firm and secure. It enters the inner sanctuary behind the curtain, where Jesus, who went before us, has entered on our behalf. He has become a high priest forever in the order of Melchizedek. And as soon as you're going like, man, I'm glad we got all that Old Testament stuff up to speed, he drops us another Old Testament word, right? He drops the word curtain. And you're going like, yeah, I have some of those in my house. This is a different kind of curtain. All right, this is in the temple area. It's a curtain, a veil that separates everything else from the Holy of Holies. This one place where only one person, the high priest, could go one time a year to offer sacrifices on behalf of the people. And the high priest only could do that. And listen, there are some faith systems today that think you have to go through one person to have everything taken care of. But when this veil is torn and this curtain is removed, every person who trusts and follows Jesus has direct access to God the Father. That is the promise given to us. Again, it's an Old Testament imagery, very important for us to know, because now Jesus is saying, I am the high priest. I am the only person in all of history who could pay the price. I'm the only one, fully God, fully human, who could pay for your sins, who could make an intercession for you. Now again, we see a name here, the guy Melchizedek. You've seen his name several times here in the past few weeks. I said 2 weeks ago when I was preaching that we're not going to skip him. Just wait till we get to chapter 7. We're going to spend 2 weeks talking about him. And that series starts next week when we'll dive into chapter 7 and talk for a couple of weeks about Melchizedek. But I tell you all of that history and going back and bring all of the Old Testament into chapter 6 of Hebrews so that today we can see how Jesus is the better hope. Jesus is the hope. He gives us an anchor for our soul. And as He does and when He does, we can live without fear or worry or anxiety or despair or discouragement. He's an anchor for our soul. So I want to go back up one verse from Melchizedek, back up to verse 19. And there's a beautiful word picture there that the writer uses of an anchor. An anchor. An anchor for the soul. Now understand, this anchor is very, very useful if you're like on a boat. If you're on a boat and you have this anchor and there's a spot where you want to park for a bit, you take it and you let it go down, and when it gets to the bottom of the lake, your boat is firm. Your boat is secure. And just as this anchor is effective at keeping a boat from drifting away, this anchor is effective if our lives are symbolically like this, tied to Jesus, so that we don't drift away. See the connection where earlier in this passage where the stiff warning came about falling away if we stay in this zone of immaturity that Dave unpacked last week? Well, if we stay anchored to Jesus, He is firm and secure, and He will hold us. But this anchor is a beautiful, beautiful picture of what it means to walk with Jesus. He is the anchor of our soul, and when our soul is anchored to Him, we have hope. Hope. Now, it's not the hope of the world, this fluffy, feel-good hope that you hope you get this gift or you hope that happens. When you talk about biblical hope, there's a sense of sufficiency. There's a sense that it will take place, that it will happen. But a lot of time when you and I are talking about hope, we're talking more about uncertainty than certainty. It's like, oh, I hope Daddy gets home before it gets dark so we can play outside. And that child has no influence, no impact on whether or not Daddy gets home in time, especially if Daddy's coming down 95, right? You just don't know if Daddy's going to make it. It's like a family, a mom and dad who's got a child deployed overseas, and they're like, man, I hope the deployment goes well. I hope he remains safe. I hope he gets home. They have little control. They have no idea. There's this amount, this level of uncertainty. Again, when we think about biblical hope, uncertainty is not a part of that definition. Biblical hope is not just a desire for something good in the future. Biblical hope is a confident expectation and desire for something good in the future. There's this sense of confidence, this expectation that it will come to pass. I wish we had time to watch a little 4-minute video this morning, but we don't, so I put it in your sermon notes and on your digital bulletin. It's from the Bible Project, and it's a little 4-minute video, 3 different words in Scripture, all translated hope. And they walk through the way hope can be understood biblically. I would encourage you to watch it for those 4 minutes. Beautiful, well done. It talks about this confident expectation, this desire for something good in the future. See, biblical hope doesn't just desire something good. Biblical hope expects something good. It not only expects it to happen, but it's confident that it will happen. Go back to verse 19. we have this hope as an anchor for the soul. Firm and secure. So let's talk about a couple of ways that this anchor works. First of all, understand this anchor is of no value if it's sitting in the boat. This anchor is only of value once it disappears through the water and lands at the bottom of the lake. It's the only way this anchor works, when it is unseen. Now think about our faith. Our faith is firmly secure in Jesus, who is totally unseen. There's an unseen aspect to faith. You can't say, "Oh, I saw God." You may see Him in nature, you may see Him in creation, you may see His movement in people's lives and growth, but the physical, visible face, no. Just like this anchor must be unseen to be effective and to work, our faith is anchored to one who is unseen, the person Jesus. And when our lives is anchored, tethered to Jesus, this anchor holds us firm and secure. But the anchor must be unseen to work. And so we have to make certain that we don't try to control our lives, but we lose control, placing it into the hands of Jesus, who is unseen. Something else about this anchor. This anchor's purpose is to keep a vessel from drifting. And that's the way it works in our lives. It keeps one from drifting. If I'm on a boat, I'm out on the lake, and all of a sudden I come up on that honey hole, and it's like, oh man, all the good fish are right here. Man, I'm getting dinner right here. I want to anchor. I want to drop this to where it's unseen, but at the end of the day, it keeps me then from drifting. I can stay right there and fish. The current's going this way. I'm locked in. I'm firm. I'm secure. I fish. Maybe it's the fact that you want to go over here to this side of the lake, and man, there's a nice little cove, and it's shady. There's a cool breeze, and you go over and you drop anchor. And all of a sudden, you are firm and secure in that cove. Keeps you from drifting back out into the current, back out into the sun, whatever. You are anchored. When we are anchored with Jesus, we then are not going to be drifting. There's a lot in the scriptures about drifting and sinking and shadowy, right? The anchor of our hope, Jesus, keeps us firm, keeps us secure. We need an anchor. So how can we have hope in God so that we can understand the reality of this anchor in our lives today? How can we anchor ourselves? I'd like to talk specifically to a couple of different groups of people as you think about this anchor. I'd like to start by talking to those who are disciples of Jesus. You've made a commitment, you've trusted and followed Him. The warning from last week, the hope and encouragement this week is really clear. Don't stay in that little immature zone. Continue to grow, continue to mature. So if you're a disciple of Jesus, keep pursuing God. Keep pursuing God. He cannot lie. His promises are 100% true. That is what creates a hope in you. That is what creates an anchor for your soul as you continue to pursue Jesus. Then you're not prone to drift. You're anchored, you're tethered, you're secure. You have a firm grasp. Jesus gives us hope as an anchor for our soul. And when we have Him as a hope, as an anchor, we can live without fear, without anxiety, without worry, without despair, without discouragement. I love the passage, a couple of verses from last week, that transitioned into this subject matter of hope. Go back to chapter 6 and verse 10. God is not unjust. He will not forget your work and the love you have shown Him as you have helped His people and continue to help them. We want each of you to show this same diligence to the very end, in order to make your, what's going to be sure, your your hope sure, you've got to be diligent. You can't just stay here in this level, in this season of immaturity. You've got to continue to grow and to pursue your faith. Be diligent. Make sure that will make your hope sure. Verse 12, we do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. Now, don't become lazy, be diligent. That's how you can be certain that your hope is sure. It's through the person of Jesus. So listen, disciples, keep pursuing God. Day by day, I'm going to be in His Word. I'm going to pray. I'm going to do what His Word says. I'm going to take steps of faith. I'm going to submit to His will and to His lordship. I'm going to be generous with my time, with my talent, with my treasure. I want to be faithful in introducing others to faith in Jesus. Keep pursuing God. Over and over again, that is the message from Hebrews. Now I realize that life can be challenging, life can be difficult. I'm not here just to speak, some psychobabble of those who have struggled with fear or anxiety or depression. It can be real and it's a bear. But when we're anchored to hope, we have a source. We have a power that can guide us and help us in those matters. Because we realize that we have a glorious hope. Even when life is a stinker, we have a glorious hope through the person of Jesus. So when Satan's tempting us, when life appears to be falling apart, when our own corruptions sort of begin to cause us to sink, when trials come, when there's an attack, we have an anchor for our soul that is firm and secure. There may be great challenges, things may not go the way we want, but in that season, we are still tethered. We have an anchor for our soul that is firm, that is secure. Now I realize that there are a variety of factors in life that can cause us to get derailed. And I listed there on your sermon note a couple of tools that I hope will help you. If you're a disciple of Jesus and you're going like, man, my world has just been rocked and I don't sense the hope that you're talking about. I'm just stuck in a bad place. One of them is written by a combat vet. It's a devotional on dealing with hope and finding hope after trauma. Maybe you've been on the battlefield, or maybe you're a first responder and you've endured and seen things, or maybe you're in the medical profession and you've seen things you wish you hadn't seen. Maybe you've been the recipient of just evil. And the trauma that you've experienced or seen just has you stuck and paralyzed. I would encourage you to give that devotional a read to see if you can begin to see hope from a different perspective. I also listed a book here, Anchored in the Storm. It's a book that was referred to us and was used by a dear friend, Vonnie Hinkle. She courageously fought and battled cancer. Now she's obviously perfectly healed in God's presence. But she shared with us her journey of battling cancer and what it looked like and the experience. And she used this book as a sort of a template. So I would encourage you, it's Anchored in the Storms. You can find it on Amazon or wherever you prefer to purchase it. I hope, if you're finding, man, that hope is hard to grasp, that you would realize some of these tools to help you just hold firmly to the anchor of your soul, to hold firmly to Jesus. Now, I'd also like to talk for just a moment to those who are here, those who are watching maybe, and you've yet to trust and follow Jesus. You've yet to put your faith in Him. The question I would have for you, if we could just hang out and visit for a few minutes, is I would ask, well, listen, if Jesus desires to be the anchor of your soul, what is it right now that you anchor to when life is tough, when times are hard? If Jesus desires to be the anchor of your soul and He's firm, He's secure, He's steady, what is it in your life that you lean to or tie into to keep you anchored? I would say that whatever it is, it's not going to provide the lasting hope, the biblical hope, for whatever fear or anxiety or worry or despair or discouragement you might face. That is only possible through the person of Jesus. So could I ask you here or watching Today, would you trust and follow Jesus for the very first time? Would you place your faith in Him as the anchor of your soul? In order to latch on to Jesus and for Him to be the anchor of your soul, all it requires is a childlike faith. And maybe that's another phrase and another word you're going like, dude, you've had a bunch of them this morning. What's that? Let me see if a personal story can help illustrate what childlike faith is. My wife and I currently have 3 grandsons. We have a 6-month-old, a 1.5 years, and a 2.5 years. And so we've been trying to help the older 2 learn how to swim and get comfortable with the water this summer. And so probably 3 weeks ago, we went to the pool for the very first time. And so we walk in, and they haven't seen a pool, and they see this water, and they're like, they got a little pool on their patio. They're like, oh, this is like a little bit bigger. And you can just sort of see their eyes get a little bit big. And so you go through the drill, right? You go over, you get on the swim diaper, you put on the swimsuit, the swim shirt, you lather on the sunscreen, then you get your floaty, your vest. It's like, okay. So I took my oldest grandson after all of that, had been done, and I chunked him in the deepest part of the pool. I wanted him to overcome his fear. Now, put your phones down. No need to call Child Protective Services. I didn't do that, okay? No, that's not how it went, okay? But we did all of the former stuff, and then I scooped him up, and I slowly walked down the steps of the pool into the water, and he could feel, it wasn't frigid. It was okay. And then we just sort of started bobbing up and down, and I had like rope burns around my neck. His hands didn't leave my swim shirt, And, for like an hour, we bobbed and we would walk back and forth. And then after about an hour, hour and a half, there's a little 2-foot kiddie slide, a little plastic slide. And so Jax goes down and we make certain to catch him so that his face doesn't go in the water, right? Just paddle a little bit, splash a little bit. This feels good. This is nice. And so we did that for like 30 minutes and we left. We went back a week later. We walked through the gate where this pool was, and he immediately went over to the wall and started to push this slide into place that was in storage up to the edge of the pool. Now, he wasn't ready yet, so then we go over, we put on the swim diaper, the swimsuit, the swim shirt, the sunscreen, the vest, the floaties, right? After 30 minutes, we're ready for the water finally. But this time, he doesn't want to walk in the water. He doesn't want to bob in the water. It's full-on slide time. And I can't tell you how many times, down the slide, catch, over to the stairs, walk around, down the slide, over to the stairs, walk around, catch him. And then it's like, okay, let's continue to take steps. And one time he comes through and just let his floaties go all the way under. His head go all the way under. And he bobs back up. Hey, it's good, buddy. Go back and do it again. He said, okay, I guess it's good. And he comes back and, keep him dry a little bit. Boom, he bobs down again. That is a picture of childlike faith. It's a picture where time and time again, the person is proved trustworthy. And God, my friends, throughout history and throughout evidence, has proven time and time and time again that He's faithful. He's trustworthy. That is a picture of the childlike faith that He just asks us to receive and to walk with Him day by day by day. So if you're here watching, you've yet to trust and follow Jesus, let me just tell you, there is not a better hope than Him. Right now, would you just go to your digital bulletin, let us know that you have a desire to trust and follow Jesus with that childlike faith. We want to pray with you, celebrate you, and make sure that your faith journey is off to a great start. Let's all join in prayer. God, thank you for this picture of allowing us to be anchored to you. An anchor for our soul, so that we might live without fear, without anxiety, without worry, without despair, without discouragement. God, I just pray for those who right now are wanting to take that step of faith, to anchor their hope firmly in you. And I pray they would be courageous enough to share that decision. God, thank you for being hope, for anchoring us. And I pray we would never, ever let go. We don't want to drift. I pray that the anchor will be certain and secure. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to invite you, if you would, to come to your feet. let's pour out our hearts of praise to the one who we can anchor to right now. Let's sing.
Is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. My hope is built Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly trust in Jesus' name. So Christ alone, Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love, and through the storm, He is Lord, Lord of all. When darkness seems to hide His face, I rest on His unchanging grace. Stormy gale, my anchor holds within the veil. My anchor holds within the veil, and Christ alone, cornerstone, weak made strong in the Savior's love. Shall come with trumpet sound. Oh, may I then in Him be found, dressed in His righteousness alone, faultless stand before the throne.
Yes, God, you are Lord, Lord of all. Be our cornerstone, God. And let us, having heard from you, let our hearts just be thrilled. May we be moved. May we be changed as you would direct us. So go with us from this place. Let our worship continue on into the week for your honor, your praise, and your glory. In Jesus' name, amen. We're so happy to have had you today. The ushers will be at the door. If you have a gift or offering or tithe to put in, that would be great. And so we'll see you next time. Be blessed.